Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. Today's video is a continuation of the War Magic video series. We are in the Ultimate Combat for Pathfinder 1E. We're looking at the arcane spells 1 to 6, and we're going to see what spells, if any, could be a game changer to medieval style warfare. Spells are on page 208. And we will start with the Wizard Sorcerer spell list. Haunted Fey Aspect, 0 level spell. You surround yourself with disturbing illusions. If you had very superstitious forces you were fighting against, that could be useful if you did that to like a portion of your army. First level spells. Enduring Step. You can move slowly and safely and still cast spells until you move quickly, make an attack, or cast a harmful spell. Abundant Ammunition replaces non-magical ammunition every round. That can be very useful for your archers and whatnot. So I would say that would be a good spell. Give them give them a quiver that has that on it, that once per day they can cast Abundant Ammunition and it'd be a full quiver again, so have 20 rounds of ammo left in it. Air Bubble creates a small pocket of air around your head or an object. That can be useful if you were going underwater. That could be useful if they're using poisonous gases. Damp Powder ruins ammunition loaded in the target firearm. That'd be great for sabotage if your enemies are using gunpowder siege weapons. If your strike force can get in there and you know that the enemies already have them preloaded, you could then hit them with that spell. So imagine putting that on a few one-use items, say sling bullets, and you just need to get close enough that you can hit the target with a sling bullet, and then the bullet hitting it activates the damp powder spell. Fabricate Bullets converts 1 pound of metal into ammunition. That can be useful if you're using black powder weapons. Illusion of Calm. You appear to be standing still even when you take some actions. Jury Rig removes the broken condition from the targeted object. That can be useful, especially if you lean into using the broken condition a lot in your games. Liberating Command. Target makes an escape artist check as an immediate action and gains bonus to it. Lock Gaze. You compel the target to only look at you for the duration of the spell. That would be useful if you could do that as a mass spell. Say you pick either a creature that could take the hits, or you pick a person that is willing to do this and give them an area effect version of this, say a mass version spell, and then get close to the targets, and then they're only paying attention to you, so while your allies are then taking care of business on them. Long Shot grants a plus 10-foot bonus to range increment for any ranged weapon fired. That can be useful, but it's not like super useful. You give that to your archers. Maybe they have a one-use item that they can use with that, and it'll increase their range by 10 foot, range increment by 10 foot. So a longbow's 100 foot, 110 foot, up to 10 range increments. They could shoot at 1,100 foot. Mad penalties for that, but they can do it. Mirror strike. You may strike multiple opponents with a single attack. Now that could be useful. Let's read that one. Okay, you briefly alter the flow of time to split a melee attack into 2 attacks. Before the end of your next turn, when you make your next melee attack roll, compare the results to the AC of 2 opponents within your reach. If the selected opponents are flanking you, you gain a +2 bonus on your attack roll and confirmation attack roll. If you hit both enemies, you can deal half damage to each. Hitting only one opponent allows you to deal that opponent normal damage for your attack. On a critical threat, you can make only one attack roll to confirm the critical hit against both opponents. If you confirm against both, you deal half your critical hit damage to each. Your hit is a normal hit rather than a critical if you confirm against only one opponent. If you fail to use the effect before the end of your next turn, the spell ends. I could see that being very useful. If you can give that to a lot of your front rows military, I attack the one in front of me. Well, the one adjacent to me takes the damage too. You get enough of them to hit enough of them, and you can weaken them pretty quickly. Moment of Greatness doubles a morale bonus. I can see that as potions. That could be useful. Negative reaction. Targeted creature may not positively influence anyone. If you could get that on the leader, that would be interesting, or his fellow lieutenants. Peacebound locks a weapon in place on the target's body. That can be useful. You peacebound one of their weapons to their body, and then you break their weapon in hand, or you remove their weapon from their hand. Reinforced armament temporarily mitigates the fragile quality in a targeted weapon or armor. I don't use that often enough, but that could be useful. I don't use those conditions often enough. That could be useful. See alignment. Pick an alignment. In your sight, creatures and items with that alignment emit a ghostly radiance. That could be useful if you're looking for somebody that doesn't fit the normal alignment of your military. Shock shield. A shield of force protects you until you dismiss it in an explosion of electricity. That can be useful. Get a bunch of that on the shield wall in the front row. They put that up. They have the increased AC. They use the mirror strike. They're doing twice as much. Well, they're hitting twice as many people with their attacks. Might not be doing as much damage, but hey, when they drop the shock shield, it will shock the front row. Unerring weapon. Grant a +2 bonus and +1 per 4 caster levels on attack rolls to confirm a critical hit. That can be useful, especially as a one-use item. Weakened powder. Target firearms ammunition halves the firing range and imposes a -2 penalty on damage rolls. Wet powder kind of is better than this. So now if that allows you to weaken a big portion of powder, then I take that back. You hit a big barrel of powder with that, any weapon using that powder is going to have issues. So let's look weakened powder up and see what its actual big description is. Weakened powder. Close range, so you have to get pretty close to it. One loaded firearm. So there, it doesn't do what I would say it could do that would make it a lot more useful. Now, if you had an upgraded version of that spell that could target a container of powder, and then you just make a note that that container now has the weakened powder effects, then that would be more useful. Adoration. We're in the second level spells now. Adoration, you gain a bonus on diplomacy checks and performance combat checks. That's not going to be useful. Animal aspect, you gain some of the beneficial qualities of an animal. Depending upon what qualities you pick, that can easily be useful. Communal ant hall. As ant hall, but you may divide the duration amongst creatures touched. Imagine a little statue of an ant as the one-use item, or once per day use item, or whatever. Use your imagination. It could have multiple uses per day, so on and so forth. The military touches that, and now they can carry ant haul worth of stuff, and if the duration's long enough, for multiple hours, if not a full march. Bestow weapon proficiency won't be that great unless you had a whole bunch of militia and you had a bunch of weapons that were more for trained soldiers. Then that could be useful, but that would still be temporary, so you'd have to get it all done before that that time frame runs out. Brow gasher. Slashing weapon deals bleed damage to an opponent's head. That can be useful. Bullet shield, +4 deflection against a bonus to AC against firearms. That'd be useful as one-use items on your military if you're encountering a lot of firearms. Certain grip, you gain a +4 on acrobatics and climb checks. That'll be useful if you had to scale walls as one-use item to give it to your whole military. But other than that, it's not going to be great. Destabilizing powder, ammunition in the target's firearm is prone to misfire. Though, even that said, the wet powder seems better, so. Endure elements, communal. You can divide the duration amongst any creatures touched, so that could be okay. Still wouldn't be great though, because the first level Endure Elements is nothing like the first level spell from 3rd edition, which gave you like Resistance 5. So. Fiery Shuriken calls for several fiery projectiles ready to be flung at opponents. That can be very useful, especially if you wanted to keep your military lightly armed. You could then give them, say, a one-use item that they just need to use to gain the fiery shurikens. And then they could throw them, and then after that, they're back to whatever they're equipped with. Frostfall. The area is covered in a chilling frost. Kinetic reverberation. Channels the force of an enemy's attack back into its weapon. That can be useful. Magic Siege Engine. That's like Magic Weapon except applied to a siege engine, so it'll be as useful as Magic Weapon. Communal Mount. This allows you to give mount to your whole military as a single spell instead of individual spells for them. So this would be useful. Like Ant Hall, you would have something, and then so many people would divide the duration of it, and you would have a mount for that time. Pilfering Hand. You may seize an object or manipulate it from afar. That wouldn't be that great for your military. Now for your strike force, your players, that could be very useful. Reloading hands. That can be useful if you're using black powder. Loads a single shot into your weapon every round. Imagine gloves that can do that once or twice per day, and you just activate it, and for, say, a minute, it's reloading your weapon for you every round. Protection from chaos communal, protection from evil communal, protection from good communal, protection from law communal. All would be good if you're fighting outsiders of those types, and then from there you'd be very protected. Qualm. Qualm doesn't seem like it'd be good, but I'm sure if you got creative enough, this could be very useful. If the enemy is doing something, is actively doing something and can be affected by qualm, then the penalties shouldn't go away. Target gains penalty on ability checks, skill checks, and concentration checks until it spends an entire round doing nothing. The next one's recoil fire. Ammunition in the target's firearm generates excessive recoil. That can be useful too. Reinforced armament communal. Returning weapon. If you're using a lot of thrown weapons, returning weapon as a one-use spell applied to the weapons would be useful. Ricochet shot. I wouldn't consider that one great for your whole military. Now, for your strike force, that could be very useful. Spontaneous immolation. Target takes 3d6 points of fire damage and catches on fire. That would be intimidating. I would use that. Use that with a sling bullet. Use that with arrowhead. Pick your targets and have them spontaneously burst into fire, taking fire damage. And for your low-level soldiers, especially your not well-trained veterans, they wouldn't have enough hit points to take 3d6 fire after catching on fire for a second round. So, stabilized powder. Ammunition of the target's firearm is less likely to misfire. Tactical acumen. That one's not going to be great. Telekinetic assembly. That can be useful if you had to assemble your siege engines, because you can do it with one few worker for every 2 caster levels. Thunderfire. Ammunition in the targeted firearm deafens opponents. That can be useful because now they can't hear commands and such that's being given. Twisted space. Target creature's attacks target a random square instead of intended target. That can be useful to add more chaos to what's going on, especially if their random targets happen to be their allies. Warding weapon. The weapon you use for focus of the spell defends you, allowing you to cast spells without provoking attacks of opportunity. Cool. I didn't know about that one. That would be very useful for your spellcasters in your strike force, or your spellcasters in your military. Have warding weapon as a one-use item. Apply that one-use item to a weapon to activate it. That weapon defends you while you cast your spells without provoking attacks of opportunity. Third level spells. Ablative barrier. Surrounds target in layers of force. Chain of perdition. Creates a floating chain of force. Dark vision communal. That could be very useful. Flash fire. Flash fire could be useful if you could hit their weapons, enough of their weapons. Because if you only hit one guy with flash fire out of 10 to 20 guys shooting at you, that's not going to be that great. Healing Thief, you siphon half of all the magical healing that the targeted creature receives. Interesting. Hostile Levitation, levitates the target creature up off the ground. Locate Weakness, you roll damage twice when you roll damage for a critical hit, and take the best damage. I like that one. That one could be very useful, especially a few one-use items. Your force is attacking, and they can roll twice and take the better damage. That'd be very good. Pellet Blast creates an explosion of conjured metal pellets. That could be useful to really decimate the forces in the military that you're fighting. Phantom Driver conjures a phantom to drive vehicles. That saves you from having somebody to have to drive the vehicle. So imagine a chariot or a wagon with a phantom driver on it, and then you have your archers on it, or you could have a lot of your military that's being transported by it. I like the idea of the archers better, though. As it's coming around, you can just keep opening fire and launching as many arrows as possible while you're on the move. Protection from arrows communal. That can be useful, especially if you know your enemy uses more archers than you do. Pup Shape transforms a single animal or magical beast into a younger and cuter version of itself for a short period of time. Resinous Skin. You gain DR5 piercing and +4 against disarm attempts. That can be very useful. If you could get that active on your front rows, the spears that are being thrusted at them in a normal shield wall wouldn't be able to do as much damage. Resist Energy Communal, that can be useful. Communal Return Weapon, Communal Share Language, Communal Spider Climb, now that can move your army up a wall, so that could be very useful. Touch Injection, you can deliver an infusion, elixir, poison, or potion as a touch attack. So 2 spells stood out to me in 3rd level that I wanted to look further, and that's Ablative Barrier. Let's look at that one. Okay, range is touch, creature touched, lasts 1 hour per level. You gain +2 armor bonus to AC as this barrier of force. The first 5 points of damage you take every turn is converted into non-lethal damage. And against attacks that already deal non-lethal damage, the target gains DR5. And by the time you'd get this, you'd have to be 3rd level there, so 6th level. So this, once it's converted 30 points, the spell is used up to non-lethal damage. That could keep your military A, alive, and B, fighting a lot longer. So I would put that on a bunch of, hell, I'd put that on armor as one-use items. They're wearing that chest plate, and it has this rune that they can activate. When they activate it, they gain this ability for that many hours, and then from there, they have that for the effect. Hell, being able to absorb up to 30 points of damage over the course of a few hours would be impressive. What was the other one I was looking at? Chain of Perdition. "10-foot chain, range is close, 25 feet plus 5 feet per 2 level. Duration 1 round per level. So a few chains with hooks, or a chain with hooks that's 10 feet long, appears in a designation of your choosing. Physical attacks cannot hit or harm the chain. The chain can perform the dirty trick, blind, or entangle, drag, reposition, and trip combat maneuvers using your level, your caster level, in place of your combat bonus and your spellcasting modifier. It suffers no penalty or mischance due to darkness, invisibility, or other forms of concealment. So you can use it to do a few things. It's not as great as I thought it was when I first read it, but hey, I would use that. You get a few casters to cast that and get some chains to appear in the middle of the enemy's forces. You can wrap them up, bind them, and those people can't move and can't fight. Plus, they'll be in the way of everybody walking. So, I can see that being useful. I think I'm going to end the War Magic for the Ultimate Combat on the Arcane with 3rd level spells today. So the next one will be 4th to 6th level spells, which should be a shorter video. And then we'll go into the Divine spells, the video after that, for the Ultimate Combat. So until we all game again, guys,